All right, welcome everybody. It is one of our biggest, most fun shows of the season. We have a district championship previews coming up for district champs in South Carolina and Georgia, starting up later this week. We also have a quick little snippet on some review for Albany before we get there. But before we get started, we have to make the usual disclaimer that any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, First South Carolina, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So, the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District and First South Carolina District. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. With that said, we'll hop into some host introductions. My name is Kellen Hill. I'm a volunteer on Georgia First side for practice fields for the district, and then long distance mentor for Bean, and new mentor then for 10482, the Buzzbots.
Hey y'all, first time on the show this year. My name is Anupam Goli. I finally made it to an episode. I'm the head coach of Team 9477 Lambda and an engineering teacher at Lambert High School.
I'm David Allred, coach of 4451 Robots Garage out of Lauren and Fountain Inn High Schools, and my first year B team for 864 Innovation Station.
I'm Brian Carlson, a mentor with Ignite Robotics, Team 6829 out of Swanee, Georgia.
We have our producer, Ian, formerly accused of being a witch, formerly accused of being a ghost. Current suspicions that he might be an alien, given some of the sounds we heard in pre-recording.
I think he's a ghost.
Maybe a banshee?
Yes, banshee, yes.
Who else is that over there? We got somebody else on the show?
It's me!
Holy cow. Our special effects budget has gone through the ceiling, folks.
I hope that looked as cool as I thought it would.
All right.
It was pretty good.
It was impressive.
So, Thomas, are you done soon now? Are you going to have a little trumpet play every time you walk in?
I prefer the recorder edit.
All right. For anybody not familiar, that's Thomas Priego, General Hooligan.
Mm-hmm. Shenanigans master.
I got demoted. I'm a Colonel Hooligan now.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We have our Albany preview as our only Week 5 district event.
You've already previewed it.
Sorry. Yeah, review, and if I said preview, I meant review.
Sure.
Okay.
Who wants it? We got some of the expected winners going in.
I'll take this
being
one.
the ones. Go for it, Anupam.
Yeah, my contribution. So Albany happened down at the Albany Civic Center over the weekend. Our winners for the event were 1771 North Gwinnett Robotics, 6919 the Commodores, and 4459, and I believe that's the Leotechs. Is that correct?
Sounds right.
I should be better prepared for this. Yes, it's Leotechs.
Yes.
The finalists of the event were 6023 the Disc Bots, 1261 the Robo Lions, and 1795 the Carver. They were the Terminators at one point, but I think they're now the Carver Clutch. And then the Impact Award winners were 6919 the Commodores, and the EI winners was 1002 the Circuit Runners. I'm an alumni of that program, so it is incredibly awesome to see them return to prominence. All right. So let's dive into the actual event then. 1771 ran away with the rankings. They were like 10 plus ranking points ahead of the second highest. And they picked 69.
Yeah, it seemed like by the end of quals, they're like ranking points. We're not too concerned about them. We got plenty. We're not.
Mm-hmm. And then their first pick was 6919, the Commodores. I think that was a pretty expected pair, though I did think that maybe they would have gone for 1261 for the ground pickup. But I think 6919's autonomous and consistency and the climb won them.
And 6919 beat them in quals.
Mm-hmm.
6919 also beat 1771 in quals. So
That's what I was saying.
Yes.
I thought you meant that they beat 1261. Okay.
No, 1771, Kellen.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Take the robots.
it was interesting. It was an interesting race, I think. Once you saw 1771 get the lead of like, there seemed to be windows of opportunity for both 1261 and 6919 to be that number one overall pick for. Made for an interesting event.
Mm-hmm.
And it did.
Yeah, that number 2 alliance wasn't all that like bad. It was a pretty strong alliance. The Discbots have a very effective robot this year, and them paired with 1261 is honestly, they made a good tandem, with one taking the human player station, one able to do floor pickup. It's just you can't stand up to that firepower.
Yeah, and I think Albany definitely was a lot different event than Statesboro. I think Statesboro, we saw every single or almost every single alliance hit at least 100 points in playoffs. But here at Albany, it's definitely a lot more low scoring event, and you can kind of see it. Like you have, I think only Alliance 2 and Alliance 1, or no, Alliance 4 cracked above 100 once, right? But you didn't really see, you just kind of saw, those two, Alliance 1 and Alliance 2. I know Alliance 2 had some struggles and lost to 3 in their first matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But like once people found their footing, and again, Alliance 3 got 135 once, but I think they got penalties.
I think 3 and 4, the Alliance 3 and 4 had good makeups. Like 8080 was very good. 9260 was very good at their job. Same with 1002 and 6925.
I think it's just one of those where they just did not have firepower. Like it's good alliance makeup and good strategy. It's just that you're seeing that they don't have the same firepower that we've seen at other events, right? I definitely think that you can kind of tell a lot of the big teams had already done their 2 plays, and so I think going in, what we all expected happened, which was 1771 is going to seed first. Who's going to be the team that they pick? Is it going to be 6919 or is it going to be 1261? And then it just 6919 ended up winning that lottery, or like earning the spot on 1771's alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The interesting thing is the middle tier was definitely smaller there. But 1771 only left 13 ranking points total on the floor. They had 59 ranking points, right? When we start talking about for DCMP, it's going to be real impressive what's going on there, because they're in this game, they may not have the separation overall, like performance-wise for other teams, but they have a separation that showed here that even without a lot of support, they could basically take care of all aspects of the game, which very few bots in Georgia can do.
Well, that and they left intentionally, I think, left ranking points on the table for their last few quals matches that I think they were shifting into an elims gear of like, we're so far ahead on ranking that ranking points don't matter right now. So we're just going to start getting in the flow of either filling out some L4 to start with and then working our way down, instead of very intentionally doing their 5-5-5 and working through systematically for the RP. That instead they were playing a game that appeared to be in preparation for eliminations.
Yeah, in Qual 51, they put up 12L4, 8L3. That's 20 game pieces. Right. And that's the RP. So I definitely agree with you there that they did leave a couple on the table. And I don't think they climbed that match either. So it's definitely the case of I think they were just getting ready. And I think something that's more telling and more impressive just from my perspective is you say they dropped 17 RP, but the number I really kind of look at is really it's 14, right? 3 of those RP that they dropped were in a match they lost by 1 point when they were outgunned. I think looking at the data in terms of help people they were against versus team help they had, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is a lot more impressive. Like they and then on top of that, there were a couple RPs that they missed that were just kind of outside their control. Like looking at it, Quals 20, they one of the RPs they missed was a auton leave. Quals 46. No, that one was an auton leave. So there were a couple out there that yes, they dropped 17, but I think when you look at stuff that they could control and you discount that one loss of just look at bonus points, it's only 12 or 13 that they're leaving on the table out of the possible 36, which is even more impressive.
72
So I think
total.
teams might. Yeah. So there were 13 that they didn't get out of the possible 72. Right. But yeah, for the race of teams trying to catch up or chase after 1771, you don't just get to look at Albany and say, all right, 59 is the number we got to get. They're going to get more than 59 at district champs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think.
Well, are we previewing champ? Are we still reviewing?
I think.
Well, we got to talk about South Carolina, guys.
Well, no.
I think South Carolina didn't have an event this week.
Right.
So I just think this event is kind of hard to review in a sense because it's it's kind of cut and dry of what was going to happen and what happened. It's kind of hard to recap 1771 kind of showed up and won.
Yeah. So what you're trying to say is
who caught your eye? Who started improving? Who's coming in with momentum?
So that's where 8080 was one of my favorite robots. They were West Coast products, multiple
MCC
competitive concept.
Yep.
6023 has been on the up and up. So seeing them finish strong. 1002 is a team that we have not seen compete at a high level since 2017.
2018,
yeah. So those were some names that it was good to see them. 1261 has some good potential with that floor pickup, right? Again, the floor pickup is probably the one thing that might get you closer to that 1771 level. Because you can cut the cycle time down. The only way you're going to catch up to that is cutting cycle times down.
Yeah, I think if anything outside of the cut and dry, the top bots won it, is that you're starting to look at robots that can contribute to alliances that'll make some interesting stories in those middle pairings, lower pairings, for the right combinations of skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with that said, let's hop into our district champs preview we'll start with Peachtree, since that's the order we got on our list here, and then we'll hop over to South Carolina.
We've got our defending champs, 1771, 2974, and 8575, who is going to be in South Carolina's district champs. And then we've got your Impact Award contenders, 4188, 2974, 7538, 3635, and 6919. You have your Engineering Inspiration contenders. You have 7538, 6919, 1683, 4112, and 1002. And then your Rookie All-Star contenders. You have 10376 and 10482. Those Rookie All-Star teams are the Plutonium Panthers and the Buzzbots, for any bit of name recognition.
Yeah, some interesting stories competitively on their end is that 10-37-6 was the third bot on the Dalton winning alliance. And then 10-4-8-2 as a rookie has been I think 6-seed alliance captain twice for both of their events for being some rookies in interesting places this season.
10-3-7-6 was also our third robot at Statesboro for Ignite and us.
Yeah.
And
Some robots to keep an eye out for. And then
awesome
for
team
that,
to work with.
those impact and EI lists, you'll see a couple double dippers for 75-38 and 69-19 coming away with both an impact and an EI. So it'll be interesting to see how those awards get handed out. I guess as a reminder, there's 2 EIs and 1 impact, I believe, to be handed out, and an optional 1 rookie all-star to be handed out. Then that we'll only gave out two rookie all-stars for this season for the Peachtree District. But with that said, if you look on the right first website, at the time of recording, there are 45 teams listed under the Peachtree
Ian,
District
is there a way to
Championship.
show the list? I have a picture in the Slack.
I got it.
We'll edit that part out.
It might be small and hard to read. We'll see.
Well, no, like I had a picture and that had like, okay. Tom, it's in the Slack if you want to just pull that one up.
Sure. Let me see. Oh, that's probably gonna look bigger. Let me know if I accidentally leak our Slack.
I mean, there's just links in there right now.
Yes. I guess you're right. There's that better?
Yeah, that's better. A little bit.
Oh well, this one comes with a sense of danger.
Okay, and if you can't see at the bottom, it's 10-4-8-2. At the top, you have 8-32.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll see the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if we want to hop in here, Thomas, do you have some action for us?
Yes. So I've been really struggling. I came out with the top 5 list last week that I quite frankly was not proud of because, to quote Howard, it was trash. To quote him, how could you place us so low? Our robot is not potentially scary good. It is scary good. So with that being said, I have a revised list of, this is Thomas's unsponsored list of fun and friendship. So with that, the number one team bought and paid for by V. Howard of 1683. The number 1 overall pick is still 1771. You can't buy me. My integrity is not for sale. 1771, best robot in district. Try and fight me. I am not wrong. That being said, number 2, money does talk, is still 1833. Again, you can't buy my integrity. Despite your many best efforts, I put you where I put you. Complain later. Right, to 1833 and 1771 are, and if I were to make a tier list, they're in the I'm sorry, Howard, I'm not giving the money back tier.
Is that Thomas's mic going out?
Yep. Those are those alien banshee noises that we were talking about.
Hey, Thomas, you sound really good right now.
Keeping them holstered here.
So when I was talking about that special effects budget earlier, it really cut into our AV equipment budget. So
which of you had the mute button, like boop?
I mean,
Okay.
you know those tariffs are impacting us all.
Yeah,
Maybe you should get that sponsorship so you can pay for the internet.
Well, no, I do pay for the internet. The issue is my router.
Sounds like you need the sponsorship money for a better router then.
The issue is I kick my router when I get excited. It's at my feet. I need to buy a longer wire, but it's on a shelf at my feet.
He blew it on
all
the
right,
next budget.
I blew
and
all the
now
money
back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Let's go.
So that being said, the third overall, I have it in like two tiers. There's the top tier, which was sponsored by Howard, and then there's the second tier, which is not sponsored by Howard, which is 69.19 in third and 29.74 in fourth. I mean, they've pretty much had an identical season. Walton has, both teams seeded first in one event, both teams seeded second in one event as the first overall pick. Both teams won an EI. Or not in EI. Both teams won a chairman's or an impact award, and both teams have just been fairly dominant at their events. So it's kind of hard to look past them. That being said, the fifth overall pick and place in this list was honestly a lot harder to place than I initially thought. This last week, I have gone back and I've watched way too much robotics. Don't tell my students that I haven't been planning lessons, but I've been watching way too much highlights and review, just watching videos to see where teams are at and my own preparations for my own team. And after reviewing it, Howard is right. The fifth overall team that I've seen is 1683. I think they were a bit unlucky at the events that they've gone to. They've kind of just been unlucky in the sense of like not getting away the hardware that they deserve. We see that they're twice. In my opinion, they're twice finalists at the two deepest events that we've seen. And it's just unlucky that they run into the buzzsaw that was 94-96, which I think at this moment is what top 20 in the world in terms of EPA. And then at Gwinnett ran into the buzzsaw of 1771. So like, it's kind of hard to go, oh no, like we've been twice finalists, but it's who have they been finalists against? It's not like they've been walking into weaker events and running away with it. So for them, I think if they had gone to different events, I definitely think that they would have walked away with a blue banner already this season. I definitely think they're a team that might be overlooked going to DCMP, and I'm not going to let them do that. Honorable mentions include, and again, this is where number five is so hard. I'd honestly feel like a tier list would have been better because you have like 3 distinct brackets, but other notable mentions include, like I said earlier, 8866. They've won 3 events. Like it's hard to see, but from what I've seen, they've kind of been the same all season. They haven't really been growing throughout the season, which just goes to show they came out swinging. They're still really, really good, but coming into DCMP where teams are kind of growing into it, that might bite them. Another team like 1648, they're probably the best ground intake in the state or in the district. So it'll be interesting to see how they play in terms of like enabling unique strategies because they have that ground intake. And so like, and 6340 is another really, really good robot that I think will definitely be overlooked. And something that going into, as we are about to talk about DCMP, something I want to note in years past, like last year, for example, there were 3 teams in the district that could score the trap and reasonably get the climb RP. 1771, and then was it 343? But really, it was just like it was those 2 teams. So the climb RP was just 1771 is just going to win because they have that. There are so many teams here, and at DCMP, there are so many climbs and so many. I think looking at both. A couple teams scouting data from what I've been told, there's only one team at this event that hasn't moved an Auton under its own power. And I can't even begin to list the number of climbers that are going to be at this event. And as such, this event is going to be just come down to how many core RPs do we see and who gets the most.
In a way, that's like saying it's going to come down to the schedule, which it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when you look at it from the ranking points game, any team that can climb and do an autonomous coral has a shot at seeding 1. That includes the second best climber in the state, 10482, the Buzzbots, right?
Yeah, an interesting possibility there. Again, it all depends on the schedule, but they're a robot that has the capability of contributing to all 3 bonus RPs. So. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens with those 12 matches.
Yeah, and I think something that is important is I think 1771 is best positioned to take advantage of the core RP. But I think because of the depth of the event, teams that would normally be like getting really close.
Yeah, we
would
again
end
our
up-
AV budget's really tanked.
But
Why?
yeah, like any team that can
Hello?
climb and get an autonomous coral has a legit shot at seeding 1. It's going to depend on the schedule. But, right, that's just seeding 1. Then there's actually winning the darn tournament. And that's where things get interesting. So I think some of us may disagree on this, but to me, there's multiple different avenues that you can approach this game. There are things like, so like back in 2023, the very first match of playoffs featured the normal strategy for winning a district tournament, which was 2 offense robots, 1 defense robot, up against 3 offense robots. And they nearly lost that one, right? Or did they lose that one?
It did.
They did, right?
Yeah, yeah. In that 2023 district champs, Blue won all 4 of the
all
first
first
matches.
All
Yeah.
4.
So that's where you saw that shift in the, oh crap, we're not in the same kind of structure. We have to adapt and change our strategy. I think you're going to have the same kind of realization here, maybe even before playoffs, but during playoffs, where you may have some alliances still sending a defender over and realizing they cannot keep up with the cycle times. And then that's where it gets really interesting, because you can build your alliance multiple ways. The majority of teams are doing Coral, or the majority of the teams that will be picking will be doing L4 Coral, and then L3 and so on, right? And maybe de-algaing or scoring an algae here and there. I would imagine that's the same with their second or their first pick. Now the third pick is going to be the difference, because here you can go a couple of different ways. You can try and go defender. You could try going with a L3 or an L1 Coral score for a triple offense game. You could try going for an algae bot to remove algae and get faster cycle times and have them score something that is not going to get in the way of others. Or you could have,
A triple climb and have an extra 12 points in your back pocket.
yeah, you can have a triple climb, and because of the game is one of diminishing returns, right? Those 3 climbs at the end of match would swing things heavily.
Yeah.
It,
And I think
it reminds me of like 2015 or some of those games where, and not as drastically, but it's a game. There are games where the ranking game so significantly differs from the win elimination match games. So there's not it's not as big of a difference, but like intentionally going into a quals match and say, all right, we're going to fill out 5, 5, 5. And even if there's 45 seconds left, we're just going to go wrap up the RP by getting the climb. But by playing that conservatively, you're doing weird things to your scouting numbers, depending on if the team's scouting or watching this happen, or understanding of, oh, they went to climb really early. They could have easily scored another 3 or 4 game pieces and then climbed. Or are you one of those robots that's just going to have your foot on the gas and we're just scoring all out no matter what, and we're not playing this conservatively in any way? Of what's the race look like between those trying to rank really high and those just playing the game to put up all the numbers they can, and be one of those top picks? And who's going to be able to differentiate between the capabilities of those robots to make the right picks as an alliance captain? That's going to be an interesting story to see shake out.
See, what I think is going to be interesting this year is, let's go back down memory lane. 2022, it was 2974, 1771. We all sort of knew those were the 2 that were going to match up. In 2023, it was 2974 and 1771. Same in 2024. In all those years, there was a clear sort of separation there. I think this year there are 5 different bots that could potentially be the number one. It's not the clear cut, and there's so much variability, and there's going to be a lot more excitement at the top. That there isn't going to be somebody that has, yes, 1771 has a lot of advantages, but with what's out there, they have to be on their game.
And I think a point to kind of piggy off what Brian was saying, I'm going to disagree with him slightly. I think if you look in 2022 and 2024, looking at those events and looking at the scouting numbers over again, like it's clear that those are the 2 best picks. But I think we keep circling back to 2023, and I think it's still a good analog. 1771 and 2974 will still not like the clear-cut number ones. At that event, 1746 was seeded significantly lower, but they were putting up similar outputs. And prior to the event, it wasn't like, 1771 and 2974 were the clear-cut favorites. Going into DCMP, 1771 had lost to 6829 and 6919, right? And there were a lot more teams that were bloodied. And I think that's something that's similar here. And granted, there's a lot more teams on clean, quote-unquote, clean runs, like 1771, 6919, 2974, 8866 have all yet to lose an event. Just something that's remarkable to have 4 teams that have yet to lose all year. But everyone's still carrying, like, it's not like in years past where you look at the 1771 robot and just go, wow, that's so much better. Or like in 2018 where you go, wow, going to DCMP, that 1102 robot is just so much better. Like it's looking at things, and I think realizing there's not a single robot at this event that does not have flaws that other robots can exploit. And I think that's what makes this so open.
That's where I think I'm going to disagree a little bit. David, you want to chime in with the outside perspective?
I think there's still a clear separation with North Gwinnett. This is a software game. They're the software experts. They've got a really good bot. They've got a full game. They're seeding number 1. Question is who they play with. Unless they just get a disc schedule, they're seeding number 1. So did Walton ever add a climber? Did they have a climber?
They do have
We've heard reports that there might be a climber on the robot. It'll be a matter of if they're well practiced with it or not coming in.
Gwinnett at that spot will have to rely on the 2 offense, 1 defense strategy most likely. So they'll probably be looking for good, consistent multi-piece auto, and most likely an in game to offset anybody that might have a triple.
Yeah.
So they if their first pick probably has to have a deep climb and who's the better Auton. And then in teleop, there's probably several teams that are probably very similar in consistency. So Auton and in-game probably separated for them.
So that's where
I just don't know who that's going to be.
That's where, like, okay, this is what annoys me with this game, right? Maybe it's because I'm an algae bot team, right? The 1771's differentiator is the fact that their algae de-algaing and algae cycles are so fast that they enable faster output per cycle, or more output per cycle than the other robots. That's why they are a clear tier above everyone else, and they're going to see number 1. Is because it's not just that everyone's putting up similar like cycles. They're getting more points per cycle on that.
Right.
And no one else is going near there. And this is also though where alliance makeup, like you go back to 2023, that game was won by alliance makeup and the alliance strategy. Again, like there are multiple ways to approach this.
Right. So a triple offense alliance in your division or your championship might be able to kind of keep up, like your robot is an algae bot with 2 good coral scoring robots. But do you have the deep climbs to offset? Do you have the Auton to offset? Play triple offense fast enough and not get in each other's way.
Yeah.
So I think 1771 opens an awesome window by playing their algae game. Is that they can play triple offense. There is the depth of coral robots in Georgia. As much as I miss South Carolina and how awesome this event would be if we had those South Carolina top robots, there are going to be some interesting choices still on the board.
I miss you.
Do you think triple offense would be the way to win this game at the number 1 and number 2? Wow.
Well, no.
think
So my point being here is that 1771 opens a unique window by playing that algae game right out of the gates for clearing the reef. If you have a third robot that's a strong coral robot, then say, all right, for the first 30 or 45 seconds of the match, you're playing coral. I'm playing algae clear and scoring them in the barge. Once I'm done there, I'm pivoting and taking your coral shoot, and you're going to play defense or. But you're not creating. I really don't like the idea of 3 coral robots working out of the chutes at the same time.
Yeah.
and I think
you're
that's
giving
where
them their obvious game plan. I didn't know if you wanted to do that on air, but that's
Well,
fine.
that's just the
I
obvious
don't-
way to approach it, right? When you have that when you have that algae ability, you invite that flexibility of what you can do in the middle of a match.
and on
Yeah,
top
you don't
of
have to
that,
wait for your third robot.
Right.
You're otherwise your third robot's the one doing it. And again,
Yeah.
1771's the unique story there.
And 1771 also is uniquely prepared. They have a floor intake that they haven't really been using, right? So if they get that working and ironed out, all of a sudden that extra shoot is just unneeded. And I do think at the higher levels of play, I think a robot, and then huge shout out, like a robot like 10376 or even 10482, the Buzzbots might, like the 2 rookies, might end up being really premium third bots for a number 1 alliance. Because I think when we were playing with, I can just speak for playing with the Plutonian Panthers, like a really coachable, awesome drive team, great vibes. Like if you're picking off of vibes, Plutonian Panthers, great pick. Anupam can attest.
Yes.
But right, yes, they're every bots, but they're putting 7 or 8 coral in L1. Right. And they're generally staying out of the way, especially if you're picking up off the floor. And I think what can cause this event to go crazy is, I think going into this event, everyone's kind of expecting, myself included, a 1771, 1833 power couple. Like they're the teams that have definitely shown the most going in. But like my really biggest dark horse contender for this event is 1648 G3. Because I think if they're on like the first seed alliance, they open up so much more flexibility, because they are able to they're able to pick up off the floor and do that quickly. There's some consistency concerns that I've seen. But they are trending up. Like their performance at Statesboro was a lot better than their performance.
No, it's almost turned into a ghost.
This
He's
stupid
still there for me.
microphone.
I can hear him.
Oh,
I can hear him fine.
Okay.
It's just you.
But another props to 1648s. They also have a pretty consistent climber. That makes them any more of the conversation ranking, as well as then putting up those 12 points at the end of the match.
And they have, I think they have a 2-piece working towards their third. So I think like this event can get kind of weird, because yes, 1771 has a complete game, but I think if they're desynced with 1833, there's a capacity for another powerhouse alliance a la 2019, where if you looked at it, it was the 4-horse race of, I think Kyle Fender called it like the USSR versus USA on like the Cold War. But like it was like 4910, 2974 on one side and 1102 and 1746 on the other. Like, I think a similar thing can happen here, where, okay, what if 1771 and 1833 get desynced? They're no longer together. 1833 is probably the second best Auton prior to DCMP from what I've seen. That's whether or not some of their Walton stuff translates. But if there's one team that is going to have another 4-piece, it's going to be them. And so like it just becomes very interesting to see like what happens with that number 1 seed. I definitely don't think I can get behind 1771 being a foregone conclusion for first seed, but I don't think that guarantees them and locks them the event.
I'd also give 1771 the odds on seeding number 1, but there's a chance that somebody else makes that spot, and I think again that's largely up to schedule. But
yeah, I mean they really kind of have to lose 3 matches to have enough space for somebody else to get above them. Yeah, because they're just they're scoring 5 ranking points, and they're going to get even more help this time. And it's going to be a tight field. They're not going to ease off the gas, right? So,
Well, but other teams are getting that same boost too, though. And I think it's going to help those other teams more than it is 1771 because I guess they're more capable of getting that Coral RP every single match instead of just half or most of them. However many they got at Albany, I wasn't keeping that close a track. But it's in a point where things can sway one way or the other. Again, they're the team that have the best grasp on controlling getting that RP every single time, and that's giving them the best odds to. But
so let me ask you this: what do you think the 1 seed RP is going to be?
Ooh.
I could see it honestly being lower than what we've seen because I think teams start to take points off each other.
Well, everyone's gonna maybe not everyone, but most matches are everyone's gonna have a seat like a floor of about 1 RP with autonomous, and maybe 1.5 with all the climbers there. So from there, it's just based off: can you get the Coral RP and can you get the win?
So, as a reference point for the district championship that's already happened in Israel, they only played 10 matches, so we can't look at just total ranking points. But the ranking score for the number 1 ranked team, which was 1690, was 5.1. So you're looking at what, 62, I think, for a 12 match.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about top.
Yeah.
But they wound up being 8-2, so they wound up dropping a number of for the 6 RPs for the losses. But yeah, it's all about schedule here, which I think is very much for the district championship event. The game is different at this event. The depth of the teams there is going to have a huge impact on qualification matches. It's going to have a huge impact on changing the game, very similar to 2023, more than I think any other recent game of saying, all right, now that the depth is here, you can start playing with some more interesting strategies for your third bot. You're going to have several alliances with 2 of the top bots from the district season on them. It's just a whole different game that you got to be ready to adjust and embrace and make sure your scouting numbers are there to make the right call when you're on the hot seat in alliance selection. But so yeah, lots of things happening.
Yeah. So I think the number 1 seed RP is to be 65.
Oh,
I could see that. Yeah, that's that's 5 RP averaging. So that's climb,
2 losses, and then hitting the rest of the RPs for
Yeah,
1771.
you get wins, and then if you lose some, you can get a Coral RP here and there.
Yeah.
That seems
No,
reasonable.
so that's getting, you're averaging 5.5 RP a match with 65.
yeah.
Or just shy of.
Yeah.
I think that's too rich. I think seeing closer to like maybe I could see a 5.1 or a 5.2 RP average, which equates to 62. I think we might see I wouldn't be surprised if it's 59 in the 59 to 63 range.
Yeah,
that's where I view 1771 as the top bot, but they're not that heads and shoulders above everybody else. That if again they have the wrong quals pairings, they can drop a match or 2 without thinking about it too much.
Yeah. That's 6 points, which is 65.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again,
But that means they're getting every single other point, Brian.
And
they were passing up RPs. This competition, they're not going to do that. They can't risk that.
You got to
I think it's really harder to do
and
that when they're on the field too.
One thing I would add, there's one other team that I think can consistently get the Coral RP on their own. And in fact, there's a team that got the Coral RP before 1771, which is 1833. They've done it without 1771 twice, right? And I think them being there, and I think looking at it, at Gwinnett, 1771 got 57 RP, 1833 got 56, and 1833 had a couple matches where they just dropped RPs randomly. Like they had a tie, they had a match that they lost and that they had originally won, but then got rescored. So like
there was one that the refs missed a bump out on that would have legitimately put them as the number 1 seed based off tiebreakers.
So again, I think 71 is the favorite, but I don't think they're I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that y'all are making it out to be that they seed 1. Like it is correct to say that they're the favorite to do so, but it's not like they're going to win it 9 times out of 10. I think maybe 2 times out of 10 or even 3 times out of 10, 1771 is the first seed, but I think there's enough depth at the lower end where and you're right, 1771 is probably the team that is best able to solo and make themselves closest to that. But Walton's going to have enough help generally in a lot of their matches just to put them over that hump and get the RP as well. 1833 is typically probably going to have enough help in their matches to get them over the hump. 6919 is going to have that help consistently in most of their matches. Because those teams they're 1 or 2 or 3 game pieces off being able to challenge for that Coral RP.
And we haven't talked too much about 1833. I think now that I think about it, that might be the one team that could bridge the gap and get into that upper tier.
What do you mean bridge the gap? They're already in that upper tier.
By that I mean by like being up there with 1771 instead of just like being a little bit below, just being on the same level. I think they might be the ones to just. So maybe 1771 doesn't seed number 1, but I think if they don't, then it's going to be 1833.
Yeah, I think Bean to this point has been a team that's more clearly been playing the ranking game to like very intentionally say, all right, this is our game plan. These are the RP we're after. Even if it means climbing super early or any amount early, we're going to go do that because that's our game plan and we don't care about putting up points. So I think that has some impact on either if you're looking at EPA lists, they might not be quite as high as 1771 and 2974 for what those EPA numbers look like, but they're a team that's had their foot on the gas for those improvements. So I think that's where they're going to be able to keep their numbers any higher during the match and still have time to go climb and be one of those teams that's scary to compete with.
Mm-hmm.
But so then I think the big question is then what happens then? So if you have your 1 seed, is the drama that's built around then the strength of all the other alliances, which again, I think the depth of this event, I've got my list of teams that I've been looking at, a number of which Thomas was reading off earlier of the pairings that are possible. You get a lot of alliances that have some really unique, powerful makeups. Again, this game is entirely different than the past 5 weeks of competition.
Yeah, I think with the firepower you have at the top 4 to 6 robots, if you could identify strategies that will give you an advantage and leverage those, it's those small things that are going to allow a 2 or 3 or 4 seed to challenge the 1 seed, whoever that 1 seed is, right? Because 1771 is the favorite, right? But when you start pairing everybody up, overall, those alliances aren't as big as the gap as there has been in the past. And I think how you play the game and how you pick and how do you want to score, where do you want to score your points are going to be important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like a wrap.
That's enough, Georgia. David, tell us about
Yeah.
South Carolina.
It is. I really wanted to go to a South Carolina event this year. Maybe I'll get to next year.
Yeah, come on up. We might run 3. With,
Yeah. Ooh.
Whoa!
If you need volunteers, I will go.
Just saying. So this year, this is our first year as solo district, and we're running district event number 3.
But this one's more serious because it has
chip, right?
Implications.
Yeah.
Represented by Magna. And so 28 of the 34 teams will be gathering there in Anderson, hoping to take away that coveted first bragging right, the first championship of the state. And of course, the coveted 5 slots to the Houston World Championship. So in our state, or our district, I'm sorry, the championship slots are a little different. We have an exception. So the winning alliance captain and first pick go. The impact winner goes. The engineering inspiration winner goes. And then the last robot in is the highest point value after that. So no automatic second pick going, and no rookie all-star. So that's our makeup. And so that's going to maybe come into play a little bit when we get to playoffs. So let's start with Impact Awards. So of course, in our 2 events, we had 3489 Category 5 won Hartsville, and 342 Burning Magnetos won Impact at North Charleston. I kind of got to go with 3489 as the favorite to take that big trophy. They have won 6 times in the last 4 seasons, including the last 2 Peachtree Championships in 23 and 24. So they are the favorites, but again, 342 has a great program. On the Engineering Inspiration side, speaking of 342, they won Engineering Inspiration at Hartsville, and then 8575 Due Westerners won at North Charleston. This was a little bit tougher to call. 8575 won, Engineering Inspiration last year at Peachtree Tramps, so they got the double qualifier last year. So I might give a slight edge to them, but that's too close for me to call. So good luck to those teams and see who comes out on top. Now, winning alliance is not so easy at this one. Number 1 alliance may or may not win this. Number 1 alliance won at Hartsville. Number 2 alliance won at North Charleston. This could go as deep as like the number 4 or 5 alliance at this event because of that all-important second pick and the depth of the field that might give you the chance to play triple offense against a 2 offense, 1 defender strategy. So 4451 has won twice with 2 different sets of partners, but that the lack of climber in their first 2 events might be too much to overcome in this particular event. 343, 2815, 8137, and 7085 were the other winners at those 2 district events. So in my opinion, there are no locks here, but 343 ranked first at both events and are still the ones to beat and control their destiny again if they can keep up with the Coral rank point game and that climber. But 4451, 8575, 2815, 1287, 281, 342, 1102, and 3490. Any of those combinations could win this thing. So again, it might be that second pick that brings it home. I do know that some of those teams have upped their algae to net game. Not sure, it's not going to be as strong as like a 1771 algae to net game. So I'm not sure that their net game is going to be the differentiator. But we got 2 net robots that are, or 2 algae specialists with deep climbs. That is 1319 and Flash, and then 6167, the CB Bear bots that have really good algae games and a deep climb. So they had some unfortunate ways they ranked and got selected for alliances in their first 2 events. But if they're the available solid second pick early in the draft on the backside, they're going to make some noise from like the number 7 or 6 alliance probably. So I'm looking for them to maybe be the differentiators in this game for a triple offense alliance versus probably the first 2 or 3 alliances, or at least the first 2 playing a 2 offense, 1 defender just out of necessity. Going to be really interesting, but we'll see. That's kind of all I got.
Yeah, South Carolina this year is an interesting case study. I think in the history of first, you're having three pretty darn comparable events
Mhm.
with just run. I think it's like some of the Statbotics thing of like run this thing 1,000 times over, see what shakes out. Is that having three is a lot more than any other instance I can think of outside of like any of the smaller districts in
Mhm.
in
Like
first.
Indiana.
But yeah, I was gonna say, but even then you have a substantial amount of shakeup for
Yeah.
who's. But
I
yeah,
I,
an
I
interesting
see this
story
as
going on
like
over there.
I see this as like a future path forward for First, and I'm glad they did this experiment because I think this really opens the door for what like First in the U.S. has been trying to become like a sport, right, or to become the varsity sport for the mind, and this setup kind of really pushes that because now you have not just like a single tournament or whatever, you have a full season, and it becomes a sports season, and I think that's important to both get that recognition and like the model of being able to compete multiple times is it gives you that actual engineering experience, right?
Yeah, and it's been we pressed for this really hard, and it's been just a great first year experiment. We had, of course, we're having some growing pains. We've added a lot of new teams. There's still looking around what's going on a little bit, but we've also tried to building our depth of interconnectivity amongst these teams, especially since like right now we're seeing them at all the events. So that's been a well fought and well played
Mhm.
strategy, and I'm hoping that First can replicate it in other places. I recommend it.
Yeah, that community building part has like been the biggest boon for the district. Just
Yes.
yeah, sometimes yeah, it suck. Not it doesn't suck. It's actually great to see the same people sometimes at different events because, again, you're forming a sense of community, and it makes it more likely you are to help each other and keep
Yes.
that gracious professionalism going.
Yeah. We've had a really good help, and then this year, in fact, just tonight we got off the phone where we had everybody on the phone call, and we were going over the event coming up, making sure everybody knew what was going on, and then we have a district-wide scouting alliance that provides free data to everybody participate. And we've been running that experiment all season and trying to work out the bugs. Really big thanks to 343 and 8575 for helping out a great deal on that alliance, and it's starting to smooth out pretty well.
Awesome. Well, glad the South Carolina experiment this season is going well. Looking forward to seeing some how the games compare for South Carolina District Champs and Peachtree.
Yeah.
All comes down to the unique skill sets of those robots up at the top. But
Yeah, we don't
any
have
more interesting, obviously, when it can be any combination, like you said, of how rankings shake out, who picks who, and
right. So it's we just don't have the depth of climbers, but there will be alliances with two deep climbs, and people just have to work on their autonomous game to clear that up. There won't be like a clear separation in the autonomous game, so this could come down to just plain execution. You miss a couple core shots, oops, you miss a deep climb, oops, and so I think these are going to be super tight matches in the playoffs.
that was another thing for our 2023 run is that we just wound up being one of the most consistent alliances to be able to make the run we did. It was just keep putting up the points, and
Right.
I don't know if I think there were one or two alliances that may have put up more points, but we just kept putting up a higher amount more consistently and help make that run possible.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it'll be consistency wins this, plus maybe that double deep climb, right? And if y'all get a triple deep climb, that'd be really cool. I'm waiting to see that.
I'm personally hoping for a sextuple deep climb, but I don't know if that's.
I don't think you're gonna see that until champs.
Yeah, I don't know if we have
It's already
that
been
many
seen at
deep
a couple
climbs.
regionals.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
six?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Six
Yeah.
deeps?
Oh yeah.
But I think the question mark here is how many deep climbs are really going to be available as third bots and I know there's some
Could happen in
strikes
quals.
against. Oh, in quals, you're saying, yeah.
Balls.
That's it probably any more likely, but yeah.
So do you think, and if so, how many unicorn matches at PCH?
What, a
Unicorn
9?
matches?
Yeah, where
Yeah.
6 and 3. I think this could be a lot easier than last year.
I
I
think
think I think it's a single digit number, but somewhere
it's
between 5 and 10.
7 or 8.
Yeah. So
Hey, want to play a simulation real quick, or a little guessing game? Or you're picking a third robot. Would you rather?
9477.
Hold on, let me finish.
1771.
Okay.
They're
So,
up and coming.
54.
Okay, let's just pretend that your typical team in Georgia or South Carolina that is going to be one of the Lions captains, where you can do L4 Coral and you can do Coral, and your game is based on that, right? Your third robot. Would you rather A, have a dedicated algae robot, B, have an L1 Coral robot that can climb, C, have a defender that can climb, or D, have a jack of all trades?
I'm going to pick the option number 1, 9047, 9477 Lambda.
Well, I think there's another option, and involves how much money Howard has in his pockets.
Yes.
Howard, again.
1683s. I don't view them as being a.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll be able to pick 9477. You're gonna be a little preoccupied.
Oh yeah, for the record, I'm not gonna be at DCMP, so if you're angry with me, you're gonna need to hop on a plane. I will be in a foreign country. I will be in jolly old England, the only country that has blown a 13
keep in mind that
quality
the US
lead.
does
All I'm
have
saying.
an extradition treaty with the UK, so
I'm not a criminal. Why should I be worried about extradition? What are you insinuating, Anupam?
All right, so back to Anupam's question. I'm a big fan of algae, particularly, I think it's most available in a third bot form compared to a 1 and a 2 bot having it. There's not too much of that shared skill set of being a really good coral robot and also having algae. But the ability to relieve pressure from the coral stations, it makes your alliance much less susceptible to defense should a defender come over. It's also putting up a significant amount of points if the algae robot's scoring well. So it's a matter of how many of them are going to be available realistically. I know we've had a couple of robots start focusing more on algae as the season's gone on.
Yeah.
So I'll reiterate 1771. I'm gonna have them play coral or algae.
Algae. Yeah,
Just algae in the new processor.
I'd pick
Yes,
up.
that's the best way to increase your EPA score.
Yep.
Balls in the processor.
But the weird part about this game is how many algae bots will get to world championships, based on that skill set alone. There's not, you don't get an automatic bid as a second pick. Well,
you do in Georgia
regionals, but if you think if the winning alliance will have a world-class algae bot.
There are some fun matches if you're looking for some matches to watch. I believe it was at Midwest Regional this past weekend with Wild Stag and +1.
+1 is terrific bot, but did they qualify?
Yeah, exactly. I think they got to finals.
Yeah,
they're not going to Worlds. They don't have enough RCP points.
But see, that's the kind of the issue with this game. You specialize in algae, but you're not rewarded for it. But yes, I would pick up an algae bot to play with, except who's going to show up to Houston with that game. I'd love to see +1 there. They were really good.
You might. I think you would see that pivot happen during champs, like quals. You're gonna see you're gonna get lost in a sea of coral bots.
Well, there are good coral bots that have a good algae game. And they might pivot to play algae, right? But they were well rounded already.
Yeah,
They're not really. I wouldn't consider them an algae specialist. They're just good with algae, which is kind of a weird way of saying it. But they didn't. They're just a good robot all around.
So that begs the question now in district champs, coming back to this one, do you start to see some of those teams pivot to algae now in like towards the later half of qualifications? And then the climb. I still think that there is a viable path where you have an L1 coral scorer and a climber if you have a ground intake robot on your alliance. Because those 12 points at the end of a match within 5 seconds, that is very, very difficult to beat.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think the whole wild card in this whole situation is who decides to play defense and when. Do you decide there are certain alliances that are going to be more susceptible to it because they've chosen 3 robots that are playing out of the coral station at the same time during a match so that you can disrupt their cycles? But it really has, you really, if you are playing defense, you have to be very intentional about when you're playing it for it to be truly effective. It was interesting. I think Israel District Champs had some interesting cases of defense where 1690, like kind of what I was mentioning for that 1771 possible strategy of them focusing on algae so much straight out of the gates, is there was defense played against that number 1 alliance, but the defender was sitting between the reef and the barge. That's where they decided to play defense at to try slowing down 1690 instead of where you've seen it most often is sitting right on the coral station wall trying to slow things down there. So it's, again, district champs is a whole different story from the district season. Get ready to adjust on the fly. Be ready for
All right.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
And I really
Quote
like
Anakin Skywalker at the beginning of Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. This is where the fun begins.
episode.
He said that.
The best thing about this game is it's been exciting to watch playoffs and all the different events. You're going to have 2 days worth of playoff quality matches, and the speed of the game and everything it's going to be really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, quals are going to be a blast, and then playoffs are going to be a hoot.
A hoot nanny.
Alliance selections is going to be a hoot too.
Oh, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the new format? I guess just real quick, because I at first was questionable, and then I kind of started to like the presentation because when you're watching it on stream, it kind of reminds you of like the NFL draft, because the
clock.
or the person walks up the clock, and then the student walks up to make the pick, and then they go back to like their little huddle station. So to me, if you put a little like graphics or pomp behind it, you could turn that into a like must-see part of the tournament. I mean, it already is must-see part of the tournament. But yeah.
But yeah, I'm a fan of it so far. I like having more of the brain trust out on the field. There's been some interesting developments for teams bringing out like small tables or desks to do any of their evaluation.
359 with the situation desk.
Yeah, that, and then I think some alliances are like, well, why are we standing here? We'll just take a seat and have a chat while sitting on the floor, just for getting comfortable out there. But
Yeah,
some of us brought stools out on the field. All I'm saying.
wow, thinking ahead.
All right. Well, any other topics before we wrap up the evening?
I think that's pretty much it. Any other final? We'll go around and give any other final thoughts. Something you're hoping to see at district champs.
Shout out any team that we haven't talked about yet. Let's
That
do that.
too. Yeah. Who's your dark horse? The team you think is particularly interesting?
I just kind of assumed that I was going to go first because I brought up the idea.
Yeah, you go
Go
first.
for it.
Yeah. Well, kind of on a different note, I really like 3635. I mean, the robot is pretty good, but just as a program in general, they've been constantly working at making their community better, and they've constantly put out strong robots. That's a strong program that I think it would be nice to see them break into that, making the playoffs at state consistently bubble, because just awesome program, awesome seem like awesome people.
All right, who's up?
I think for me, my dark horse, I've already said it, is 1648. And the interesting robot to watch is going to be 1414.
I'm going to go a little different. There's a couple things I want to highlight that from the season, and sort of echo something that Thomas had talked about. Team 10376 Plutonium Panthers and Team 7676 Robo Dogs. It was a great experience with both those teams as three bots, being very effective what they're doing, being very coachable, and contributing to the alliances when we were playing. It was a great experience to have with those, and I'm looking forward to some of that at DCMP.
I'm looking forward to the manatees causing a bit of ruckus. I think they're another one of those interesting robots that's going to, again, seed well for having climb and having a strong coral game. They're at an interesting point in the pack to put together some interesting alliance options. So looking out for them. I think the other curious robot, they were asking a few questions couple weeks ago about adding a deep climb. Is 3318 as an L1 robot, just being able to crank out a bunch of coral L1. If they add a deep climb on that robot, that's some interesting territory to tread. So I'm keeping my eye out for them.
That's like that third robot that I was talking about. You have a deep climb and L1 coral game like that. That's strong. You want that robot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for me, I'd say mystery to me would be 1102. When they're on, they're on. So are they going to be on? And I believe they will. So they're going to make, I believe, a lot of noise.
Maybe, I think that's a similar story in Peachtree is figuring out all right, who's had their foot on the gas since their last event. Is the ability to iterate and change from event to event is another wild card we got to look forward to come things getting started up on Thursday, really, since Wednesday's just loading. But yeah, looking forward to a couple good shows. We'll plan on having a DCMP review and then champs preview. We'll see if we hold out until divisions are released, but hope to have some more content out for you all. But best of luck to everybody going to their district championship event. For those not going, I hope you enjoy the show because there'll be some really good action.
Yeah.
But until then, we'll see you next time.
Come by and say hi if you are by.
Oh, yeah, I'll be out at the practice field the entire event, so come see me.
Yeah. We wish we could say hi to you, David.
Hi. Come on by. You're not doing anything.
All right. We'll see you next time, PCH and South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.